Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen. And thank you all for having me here. As Karen said, I had my temperature taken at the airport last week. I'm all good. I'm a little bit worried I might not get back into the UK, but quite frankly, if you keep me here, I think I'm okay with that. What I'm going to talk to you about today is some work that we started in the UK back in 2008. And we kicked off in the UK then because that was 100 years of some women getting the vote in the UK. Not all women, but some women. And as part of that, we thought, I wonder what's really changed in those 100 years when we think about it from a marketing and advertising and communication perspective. So we started this, we debated a lot of the name. Many people said this is a movie with Mel Gibson, which is not very good, but we stuck with it. And we looked at kind of how brands can contribute to that conversation, both from a moral point of view, so a societal imperative, but also actually what was the financial kind of side of being more progressive in your marketing and communicating to women. So that's what I'm going to take you through today. As Karen said, we have actually added to this sort of body of work over the last 18 months, because what we then began to think about, okay, what is media's role playing? You know, if we take the creative work itself, actually what role does media have? And then how do organisations have a responsibility, and how do they help change the conversation internally? Because that's what we began to realise in talking to clients. They said, look, I love this work, and we'll show you lots of great examples. But they would say to us, well, I'm not a Nike, you know, I'm not a Unilever or you know, a P&G, you know, I'm a smaller organisation, and how can I really go to my leadership teams and begin to say, I think this is the right thing to do. So that was where we sort of began to move with clients and say, okay, actually what are the learnings you need to take internally? So I'm going to share some of those as well for you to take back to your own businesses and have a think about how that works today. But as I said, we sort of started with this feeling that it was good to do from a moral and societal point of view, but actually there is a huge and growing body of evidence that financially this is also incredibly important for brands. And this is evidence just kind of that is out there in the public domain, saying that $12 trillion could be added to the global GDP by advancing women's equality. So there's a huge opportunity there. And if we drill down into our own data that we have within Kantar, we pulled some data from our Brandy database, which looked at brands, and we basically said, look, are these stronger amongst women, stronger amongst men, or do they have an even skew? So you can kind of see these three groups that we grouped them there. And what you can see is that gender-balanced brands are worth more. Right? So if your brand appeals equally to both males and females, it is more valuable. Either male or female skew it reduces the value of the brand, but actually the difference is most stark when you look at male skewed brands. They are effectively leaving $9 billion sitting on the table by not talking to women at the same time. So that's what I'm going to cover, some examples of people who do that today, and also how you can think about it from your communications point of view as well. So an example of a client that we worked with is Home Depot. I don't think you have Home Depot in South Africa. We don't have it in the UK either. It's actually a US brand. It is effectively a kind of DIY warehouse type store. You will have the equivalent. And we looked at their financial value back in 2010 when it was a brand where we looked at it that skewed much more heavily male. Its communication was all around men, only men do DIY, women don't know how to lift a hammer or change a light bulb. And that was the positioning they were taking, and we said to them, look, you are ignoring a huge population. You know, more and more women live on their own. You know, they're growing up, they are choosing to live on their own. They need to be accessible, and this sort of product needs to be accessible to them. So over the last, well, almost 10 years now, which is quite frightening, you can see the difference in their brand value. It's absolutely staggering. And a lot of that was how they began to communicate with customers and talk about the role of women and also the experience of women in store. Do you know, if you go into certain stores, you can actually feel quite intimidated as a woman and think this is definitely not something that feels accessible or that I can have a conversation with somebody about. They worked incredibly hard on that, and you can see the kind of impact there on their brand value. So when we talk to our clients about this, what we have developed is a progressive marketing framework, and I'm going to touch on lots of these different areas today, but it's really about what are the right conditions for creating progressive marketing. So on one hand, we have the organisation, and this is what I talked about, it's almost like the internal side of things. Is the organisation set up for success? Can you genuinely have an open conversation? Is your business and category vision and strategy, is it designed thinking about equality in mind? Who are you targeting and what are you talking to them about? And then you look at the organisational culture. Is it possible to even have these conversations within the organisation? And say, actually, I'm looking at our creative work or advertising, and I'm not really sure that is progressive. Are you able to have those conversations? And then it's about manifestation. So how do you show up externally to your consumers? So either through your brand, your product, the innovation, things you are developing, through your communications, which is often the area that is perhaps most visible, and then also your customer experience. So I talked about Home Depot. You know, if you go into store or you phone a customer care line, how is that experience sort of different for both males and females? Do you know, should it be different? And actually, if it should be, have you thought about that? And then the final area that we work with clients on is really about how are you measuring and evaluating yourself. So are you tracking your progress? You know, are you moving in the right direction and is it working? So I'll touch on all of this, but I'm going to start with communications because that is often, as I said, the most visible touch point, certainly for consumers, and it's something as marketers that often tends to be the focus. So if I start with the marketer's view of the world, so this is from a piece of work that we did called Getting Media Right. We interviewed about 3,000 senior marketers globally, and we asked them a number of questions. So we asked them, are you actively designing advertising to appeal to women? Are you creating advertising that features positive role models for women? And then we asked them the same questions for men. And we've split the results, male and female. And what you can see is it's a fairly rosy picture. Most marketers think that they are actively designing advertising that appeals to women. They think that it is producing, or we're showing positive role models. Women are slightly less sure when it comes to men, but they're still overwhelmingly positive. But the male marketers, they've got a very rosy view of their world. I know, you know where this is going, don't you? So over here on the right hand side, this is still my marketers. They're saying, no, we avoid gender stereotypes. We create advertising that is balanced. Then you ask consumers, and it literally flips. Do you know, you have over 3/4 of women saying, actually, I don't think you do portray me in a way that is realistic. They think we're completely out of touch. Even males. So this really, you know, we talk about this as what women want, but actually it is really about equality. And often we see real problems and challenges in some advertising that is aimed at men, certainly younger men, where you see a lot of stereotypes being portrayed, and genuinely they are as unhelpful as female stereotypes. So while I am concentrating on Women's Day, it's International Women's Day, the reality is it's about that equal picture, and that's what we should be striving for. So sadly, that rosy picture of those 3,000 marketers we interviewed really wasn't reflected when we went and we spoke to consumers. And then we analysed some of our own work. So we do a huge amount of creative development work using our link testing, and we have an enormous database of those ads that we've literally tracked over years. And so we thought, right, okay, let's have a look and see what sort of role models are being portrayed in the advertising that we are testing. And what we saw was that only 25% of the ads, and we have something like 200,000 ads in that database, show women with non-stereotypical traits. Only 6% show women as authority. Only kind of 20%, so a fifth, show women in aspirational roles. more often than not, when women were portrayed in advertising that we were testing with clients, they were caring or they were likeable. I don't really even know what likeable means. So they're not being portrayed in ways that we felt was genuinely reflective of how women should be portrayed. And it's kind of difficult to understand why in many cases. And it's not just our data that supports this. So this is data from the Gina Davis Institute, who's done a lot of work in this area as well. This is one of my favourite quotes, partly because it kind of makes me feel slightly sad, but I do also think it just sums up the challenge that we're facing. So I have never identified with any woman in an advert for anything. I mean, that's fairly staggering. Do you know, it's kind of wondering, is it too much to ask to see some females in adverts that look like me, sound like me, or behave like me? So it's, as I said, not just our work that demonstrates the need for advertising to really catch up with the rest of the world when we're depicting women. And this is some analysis of Cannes award-winning ads as well. If I may just to labour the point even further, is that the analysis of advertising over a 10-year period, so it was 2006-2016, looked at some really simple things. Men speak 7 times more than women in Cannes award-winning advertising. This is supposed to be our best advertising in the world. 7 times more than men. They get about 4 times as much screen time, and they're 62% more likely to be shown as smart. That's because us women we want to be likeable, apparently. Not worried about being smart, just please like me. So as I said, there's lots of evidence coming from lots of different places over the challenge here. And we thought, well, let's just make sure. We took a slightly different angle on this as well. And we looked within our database of TV advertising, and we looked at who we were asked to target. Right? So obviously, if any of you guys pre-test with us, you will say, this is the sample I want you to recruit and interview. For baby products, laundry products, household cleaners, 98% of that is women. Right? I know you're sort of laughing, oh God, this is bad. So it's not just the creative work itself, right, that we're producing. It's actually then who we're targeting. We're going out and we're saying, oh, women, they don't really need cars. And if you have a car, you certainly don't need oil, right? In the UK, more cars are sold to women than men, right? It's now 52% of all car sales in the UK are to women. But yet we still underrepresent them in advertising and targeting. So there is an issue, as I said, sort of not just on the creative side, but also on the targeting and the media side. We looked at this over a 10-year period because we were like, surely it's getting better. Not really, is the answer. So we can see a slight downward trend on laundry products and household cleaners as it's acknowledged that men might want to clean their houses as well. Although Karen said she visited her son this weekend and he was
needs help.
This is probably why, because he's never seen a man in a laundry or household cleaner advert. So there's still a long way to go. Do you know, we have to kind of accept some of these facts and say, okay, what are we going to do? Because as I said, the responsibility very much sits with us as marketers to say, how do we change this conversation and genuinely present a more equal picture to both men and women. And as I sort of said at the beginning, this is not just a kind of, oh, you know what, morally it feels right. It's actually a business imperative. So this is some work we did for Unilever, who have allowed us to share this. And what we did was we did analysis of a number of their ads, where we asked them questions at the end of the survey. We asked about the people portrayed in the advertising. And we said, do you think these are positive or negative role models? Do you think they're reflective of society today? And then what we could do was very simply quote the adverts and just say, well, those ads people did not think they were reflective, or they did not think they were positive, versus those that they did. And we could see that the least progressive ads, so ads that people told us they did not feel were portraying positive stereotypes, were twice as likely to get the lowest scores. So they performed worse, really simply. And then when we use our facial coding analysis, so this is when we watch people's expressions to get their more implicit response to the advertising, you can see there was frown and disgust. Those were the overriding emotions that were being felt when people watched these ads. Conversely, when we identified the most progressive ads, you can see that the picture completely flips. Those were much more likely to be effective. And again, when we looked at people's facial response, so the implicit reactions, they were engaging, they were enjoyable. We could see surprise, do you know? Because sometimes people were like, oh, I didn't expect that. But they were much, much more effective in market than in delivering results for Unilever. So this is now a question we have kept on as standard. We offer it to all clients to say, look, we can put them on and then we can begin to benchmark your own advertising and see how it works. And help you build the business case to go back to organisations, to take it to senior leadership and say this is genuinely really, really important, but also it's going to make our advertising more effective, which is a good argument to be able to have. So if I come back to some of the ways that women are portrayed within our database here, I showed you this number earlier, that only 6% were felt to be authoritative. When we actually looked at how those ads performed versus all the other ads, again you could see they performed better. They were higher in persuasion, so in terms of telling people some interesting news that was going to make them go and take some action. They were more believable, and they also helped build greater brand appeal and that feeling of uniqueness. So again, just adding to that body of evidence that said this is really important, but also it's going to help us create more effective advertising. So if that's the business case, so I've kind of set the scene that this is really, really important, what can we do as marketers to help change the conversation? So we did some further research where we looked at the role of self-esteem, female self-esteem, and we looked at the role of brands and organisations in how they built that self-esteem. And I'm going to run you through just a few highlights from that research. But effectively what we found was sitting under this concept of female empowerment was a highly nuanced idea of self-esteem. You will not be surprised to hear that self-esteem is lower for women than men. That was actually much more pronounced amongst millennial women, so younger women, which we spent a lot of time talking about, saying why would that be? Aren't we doing some great work? Aren't we supposed to be building younger generations with greater self-belief? So that doesn't seem to be coming through. I will talk you through 5 contributing factors to self-esteem and then think about how your brand can feed into those. And then I'm just going to look at some different categories and how those categories either add to the conversation or where there's most work to be done. So I talked briefly about this. So we asked people, in comparison to the average person, when you think about your level of self-esteem, how would you compare it? And it's just very simply women versus men here. You see that men have much higher self-esteem. Women are more likely to feel, a third of them, more likely to feel they have below average self-esteem. As I said, that was more pronounced amongst younger women than older women. And what did we mean by self-esteem? Well, we'd split this into 5 factors that feed into it, and I'll just very quickly take you around. So this is just the total view, male and female. What you can see is it's kind of neither singular, so there's not just one thing, nor is it particularly simple, but if we start with sexual and body autonomy, that is actually the feeling that you can look how you want, wear what you want, and you will not be judged on that. Financial autonomy, the feeling that you are in control of your own money and finances. And you have the power to say how you choose to spend it or not. Freedom of expression, you can say what you like, and again, you won't be judged. Social connected, networked, that is the feeling of friendship groups. So of having that support network that sits behind you. And then accessibility and visibility is the feeling of role models. So that you see role models and people that look like you around you. And if I split this male versus female, you begin to see some differences. So females, the two most important elements are sexual body autonomy and freedom of expression. So how women look and what they are able to say without feeling of being judged. That's also important for men, but what you see for men creeping up there is that feeling of financial autonomy. So it probably doesn't surprise you when you think about the financial services category. It's often quite a heavily male-dominated category, the advertising, the world of finance. So it is more important for men, and that contributes to their self-esteem, whereas for women, that is a lower area. Now, when we look at women who have high self-esteem, that becomes much, much more important. So the feeling that they are in control of their own finances and have the freedom to spend their own money on what they want becomes even more important. When I break down that feeling of self-esteem and how different categories can add to that conversation, you begin to see some really big differences. So the idea of the health and beauty category, lots of women say, actually, that is for me. I see role models in there that actually I can look at and I feel comfortable with. But yet you go all the way down, and this comes to our friend the automotive category, where women don't drive cars. And they don't feel they're reflected there. They just say quite simply that's not a category that really supports me. We see the same challenge in finance, technology, travel, even clothing falls below average. So there's some really interesting thoughts in there if you work in any of these categories as to why that might be and how your marketing or your communications is either adding to a conversation for women or against women. And I'm just going to now share with you just some examples of different ads across a number of these categories and talk about why I think they either work or against. So the first one I'm going to draw is just it's actually an ad that was on the Underground in London, and this is for an investment company, so financial services, and Nutmeg, and it's an online investment company. It's very, very accessible, and the reason I like this advert is partly because of the typing on there, so the investment millionaires don't look like they used to, but also the image of the woman used. Right, if you look at her versus an ad from the 80s, you sort of go, okay, we're moving in the right direction. Okay? I mean, admittedly, I don't tend to sit indoors wearing a hat, even in London, but I feel like that's more me than this lovely girl who's being shepherded into a bank. Why you have to assume her husband because she couldn't possibly go. Come on, my darling. Let's go. I mean, even the girl's guide. It's very funny. So really, this is a really old example, and I pulled it out just to show the contrast. But this is much more reflective, I think, of how women would like to be seen. And I can pick a dozen examples of ads still today who fall into this trap of being slightly patronising, not even slightly, hugely patronising. But this just was one of the examples we had in our exhibition of ads over 100 years that kind of repeatedly makes me laugh, just because you're like, really? That was how it worked clearly in the 80s. So another example of actually where we saw some amazing advertising was the Women's World Cup. So that was last year. We saw a lot of brands begin to go, okay, this is a pretty big event. Certainly was within the UK, and Scotland certainly didn't even get in there, so I've used the English football team as my example. But it was a huge thing in the UK, and I have a 9-year-old daughter, and we sat and we watched it, and my husband's like, this is better football, do you know, because there's none of the drama that you just like, I'm dying, no, it's not you just didn't get it. He was like, look, there's way more goals, this is actually more fun to watch. So aside from that, what we found was lots of brands say, look, how can I enter into this journey? How can I add to the conversation around women's football? And we certainly in the UK saw a lot of very worthy advertising. It was like, women have struggled. They have struggled for years. And, you know, here they are now playing football. Well done us. But we saw some really, really nice examples. So I'm going to share an example from Budweiser, which was, I felt, a really interesting ad, and something that, you know, if you think about them as the king of beers, you know, how did they genuinely come along and not do just something really obvious like call themselves the queen of beers, which I imagine somebody thought about, but they chose not to do. So I'm going to share this ad here.
You may think I have the body of a weak and feeble woman,
but I have the heart and stomach of a king.
And a king of England, too.
And think foul scorn that pain
Or strength.
Or fear of failure
should dare invade the borders of my ground. To which, rather than any dishonour shall grow by me,
I myself will take up arms. I myself will be your general,
judge and rewarder of every one of your virtues
on the field of play.
Now the speech they were giving is actually a speech from Queen Elizabeth I, for when she came to the throne back in the early 1900s. So it wasn't something new. So women have been talking about this for some time. But I just thought it was a really nice sample which felt quite true. In a category that sometimes is quite difficult, right? If we think about it, beer especially, certainly within alcohol, but still quite often thought of as a male sort of dominated category. So that felt like a really nice example just within the context of a sporting event that traditionally could have been very, very male, but they were saying, look, you know, let's think about this more broadly. Another example I'm going to share from you is just from the FMCG category. So what I've tried to do is pick lots of what I think are good examples. And this is for Special K, so Kellogg's cereal, which has traditionally featured a woman in red, normally in a very floaty, beautiful dress, strolling about, you know. But they took a departure and they said, okay, how do we talk more to women with this? And I think this is a really nice example because, back to the nutmeg example, it features very, very real women.
Everything we're made of powers everything you're made of. Special K, powering you.
And you know, I like that for a number of reasons. One, it's an everyday product, right? And I feel like they've taken a little bit of like Nike inspiration. You know, there's good music, but they show a whole variety of women. But what they've done is overlay it with really clear product messaging. Right? There's super clear reasons to believe, building our awareness, knowledge of the product. It's not just this kind of, oh, I'm going to put loads of women in an ad, that's going to make it better. They've actually, I mean, lots of us could think of examples of brands who've done that. What they've done is say, right, we've got some really clear, really targeted messaging here, and how do we get it across in the right way? And anybody who's ever had a baby in a sling and juggled 7,000 things getting out of a car can relate to that. So that was I thought one of the best examples. The next example I'm going to share with you is actually from Russia, right? Because what I wanted to do also as well is acknowledge that not all markets are equal when it comes to this conversation, right? So the UK is fairly progressive. South Africa is not as progressive as the UK. Russia, you'd go actually even worse. So this was an example from Russia, from Nike, which again, you kind of goes quite interesting, right? Because how do they go into that market where female athletes are not celebrated? Do you know? They're not at all. And begin to have a conversation. And again, the reason I picked this one is because it starts with young girls, right? So they're sort of thinking about the conversation early. So to that point about self-esteem amongst younger women, actually still have lots of work to do. They're acknowledging that and saying, you know, part of the problem here starts when women are very, very young. And it is an insidious message that we get fed with our entire life. As I said, I have a daughter who's 9, and her favourite story, or while until we were like, let's not talk about this because it's really quite depressing, was she was in school one day and a teacher came in and said, I need 2 strong boys to come and lift some boxes. So of course she put her hand up and was told not to be silly. Of course she wasn't a strong boy, she was just a girl. And this is literally an example from 6 months ago in the UK. And we happened to be talking about it because she came home, she was very pissed off. As you might imagine, I was very pissed off. I was like, I am going to rent on school. And we were talking about it, and I happened to have a friend who is a personal trainer. And he just very casually said to her, well, what you should have said is that genetically, girls are stronger than boys till the age of 9. And we were like, is that even true? Yeah, I mean, I didn't care if it was true or not, I'm going to be honest. I was like, you get this go. So I don't know if that's factually true. We didn't fact check it. I was just like, I'm taking it, I'm telling everyone. It's a fact. The more I say it, the more it becomes true. I mean, he should know, right? So I took him at his word. And she did go to school and she got her hand, and again she was told to just stop being disruptive. And again I went back and complained, because that's where this starts, right? It starts at a really, really young age with really silly comments by teachers like that, where you just go, actually, can you hear it? And this was a woman teacher. You're like, do you actually hear what message you are sending out to young girls? So that is the reason I liked this advert from Nike as well.
Наши девчонки, ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла. Из цветочка, из звоночка, из переглядок и мармеладок сделаны наши девчонки. Из железа, из стремлений и самоотдачи, из сражений сделаны наши девчонки. Из упорства, из красы, которой гордится вся нация, сделаны наши девчонки. Из синяков и тумаков, из отваги сжатых кулаков, из независимости и мастерства, из страсти и сердца и достоинства, из воли крепче Кремля, из силы и огня, из свободы от чужих мнений, из свершений и достижений сделаны наши девчонки.
You know, in Nike over the years, you have to admit, sort of have made some ads that I don't think have been very inclusive to women. Because what they set out are a lot of role models that I personally don't look like. I don't look like a professional athlete. I'm never going to be a professional athlete. Sadly not at my age now. I think I've missed the boat. But they also do produce some really, really nice pieces of work that genuinely add to the conversation. And the last example example I want to show just in this little section is an ad from Saudi Arabia for Nissan. And I think this is a really, really interesting one. Some of you might have seen this before. I kind of find this quite difficult not to cry at. It's quite emotional. So there's your challenge. Let's see if energy starts to
أنا أحس إن البنت اللي بتعتمد على نفسها أكثر وتقدر تقوم بشخصيتها منها.
احنا من زمان منتظرين خبر زي كده.
عاشت من يوم ما اتولدت مع المرأة ما كانت تسوق في السعودية.
كانت ردة فعل بابا أول شيء كان مرة مصدوم وكان رافض هذا القرار.
كان شوية متحفظ لأنه نحن عشنا عيشة البنت ما تقدر تسوق.
طبعا صاروا يسخروا إنه كيف المرأة حتسوق ونكت كثيرة وإنه حتخش في الصيف ومدري إيش يعني ده الكلام.
أنا من الناس اللي حستنى يعني حشوف experience الناس اللي قبلي.
حستنى وقت طويل على ما اسوق.
تفضلي، فعندك الأوراق هنا فيها الإرشادات المرورية، لو تحبي تراجعيها لأنها يجي مدرب السواقة.
السلام عليكم. هلا وعليكم السلام. ايش احساسك وانت تهتف معي؟
الحمد لله.
والله اني فنانة. قول بنتي فنانة. يا سلام.
بس خلاص بس عندك 2000 باقيين.
خلاص.
كان عندي لحظة إنه كيف أسوق أول مرة أسوق، بس لما حسيت إنه بابا جنبي حسيت إنه لا في أمان وراحة يعني.
ساعدني اخوي انه جاء عشان يدعمني يساعدني.
لو هو معايا كان أنا ما أقدر أروح.
لكل واحدة يعني مترددة انصحها أول حاجة طلع الرخصة.
بإذن الله حسمح لها بحصول على قيادة الرخصة وكلها داعم.
هذا الموضوع حيصبح في يوم من الأيام هيستوري.
طبعا القرار لي في الآخر، تبى تسوق ما تبى تسوق.
And the reason I want to share that again is to just demonstrate the different journeys, different markets are on. Do you know, in the UK, that seems really alien to me. Do you know, that at 17 I learned to drive. I cannot imagine what it would feel like to literally be my age now, I'm 44, and have never driven, and no other woman in my country had ever driven. So that would, I think, be quite terrifying. So I like this ad from Nissan because I think they acknowledge that, and they said, you know, this is an enormous step forward for that market. And I think that's what's important today, is to recognise what that journey means here in South Africa, and Tabang's going to come on and talk about really kind of what that does. So I'm going to finish up just back with my framework, and I'm going to briefly take you through some of the other areas. So we've talked a lot about the importance of communication and the different examples. I'm very quickly just going to give you an example from each of the other areas. So if I start with business and category vision and strategy. So ASOS, some of you might be aware, is an online clothing retailer in the UK. They launched a category that was effectively the beauty category, but what they said was, actually when you think about it, the beauty category as a name is actually quite an exclusive name, right? If you don't feel beautiful, why would you go into this category? And also the images you see of women or men within this category are of a certain type. Let's face it, it's, you know, a little bit back when I was talking about Nike, they're not attainable to me. Unless I grew about another 2 foot and lost, quite a big amount of weight. So they looked at different people to represent this category, and they renamed it Face and Body. Right? Not that exciting, really. But you actually go, that's what it is. So why do we talk about it as the beauty category, and why don't we talk about it as the face and body category? So I love this example, and it did phenomenally well for that. They saw enormous growth specifically within that category as part of this campaign, and just the diversity of role models was amazing. An example of organisational culture. So I'm going to talk very briefly about Diageo here. So Diageo are quite famous for how they have reorganised their business. So Sil Saller, who is their global CMO, sent everybody within her marketing and her planning teams on unconscious bias training. To basically try and say, actually, you need to stop and think about the biases that we all carry with us. They are part of who we are. But how do we help overcome that? So she believes very firmly that has to start within, and as I said, has sent everybody in her team on training to overcome that. And then what they make sure they do is they have great representation of people working on their brands. So this is Bailey's, which is sort of, in the UK, it's very heavily skewed towards females being a bit giggly at Christmas sort of thing. And so they moved their advertising to be a little bit more inclusive and have more of a mixed team working on it. And it increased their sales massively. But it has to start from within and the people working on the business and how they think about the brand and the advertising. Brand products and innovation. You might be looking at this and going, hang on a minute, Barbie, really? But Mattel have done a huge amount of work on Barbie, partly because they were called out. Do you know, if you think about it, it's kind of the very, very stereotypical example of a female that actually, I think if they produced her, she would be like 17 feet tall and be somewhat skewed and fall over the whole time because her breast and her bum were just out of proportion. So they started an initiative called Close the Dream Gap. And they did some work, and this kind of comes back to the Nike example that I say I love because it starts with girls. They said that actually, by the age of 5, young girls start to realise, or are told and conditioned, they are not the same as boys, and they cannot do the same. So if you think about astronauts, if you think about fire people, firemen, you think about certain stereotypical roles, girls by the age of 5 start to believe that they can't do some of those roles, which is hugely depressing. I mean, 5 is really, really young. And by the time they reach 13 and they hit puberty, that becomes even more stark. They begin to lose self-confidence, and that's where we see this challenge around self-esteem. So Barbie have a huge initiative, and part of that has been about their products. If you see Barbie nowadays, you will see there are all sorts of shapes, sizes. There are different role models in terms of kind of astronaut Barbie or Dr. Barbie. They have an entire range that's called Creatable World. It's effectively a unisex Barbie. It got banned in Russia, which I think is, I was like, yes, Barbie, you were on the right line. I think it's banned in Russia, kind of says you're pushing the conversation on. But effectively, you can decide if it's male, female, if it's not, and you can choose what it wears. You can create its hair, whatever you want. Creatable World. It's a brilliant example of a brand who actually were called out for something and said, right, we can be part of this conversation rather than being part of a problem. Another example is on customer experience. So this is a campaign from a brand in the UK called Demerit. It is, it's not a pharmacy, but it's a health shop. And they recognise that 2 points in women's lives are really, really instrumental. One is puberty, when more often than not, most of us have a mum or a role model that you can talk to about puberty and what's happening when you start your periods and things like that. But when you get to menopause, actually there's very, very few role models. And for a lot of women, their mum might not be there. They don't have anybody to talk to about this. Society doesn't talk about it. You don't see it advertised. So they created what was, I think, genius, menopause campaign, and they trained all their in-store staff to have a conversation with women about menopause. They wore big badges which just said, come and talk to me about menopause. They could recommend products to help with the symptoms, and they could have a conversation. And it was hugely successful. So when you think about whatever your brand is and whatever category you're in, think about how women experience that category. We've spent a lot of time talking to clients who have customer care lines. And often with customer care lines, there's a script. And you're like, well, do you have a different script for men and women? Should you? Do you know? So we work with one of the big tobacco companies, and obviously vaping and electronic devices are huge things. And when you think about even back to the invention of the iPhone and the challenge that many women have of fitting it in a jean pocket, you have to then think about, are they developing products and care for women as well, and actually are they using products differently? So we worked with them to say, look, what should your script be? If a woman phones your customer care line saying what problem with the product, might that differ from a man? And then my final example on measurement and optimization is back to Diageo. So I talked about their internal culture and how everybody went on unconscious bias training. What Sil Salah, their CMO, also did was talk to their agencies and say, I want to see what your policies are for men versus women. I want to see how many women you have on your board, right? And what you're doing to change that conversation. So what are you doing around inclusion and diversity? She also supports something that's called Free the Bid, that says every advert they make, the team pitching for that creative work has to have a female on it. She champions female directors within advertising. So this is what I mean by measurement. You've got to start to measure your progress and saying, actually, where are women involved throughout this process? And often I get asked, mostly by men, do I mean that only women should work on advertising for women and that an all-male group couldn't come up with a great ad for women? Of course not. But you've got to challenge yourself and go, could it be made better? Or have you sense checked it? I mean, some of the ads that you see come out are a bit like, did you show that to anybody? Because, you know, people fail. We have a body in the UK called the Advertising Standards Authority, and they now have the power to ban adverts because based on gender stereotyping. Now that could be male or female. So one of the first ads that were banned was an ad by Mondelez for Philadelphia cream cheese. You guys have cream cheese, you know? And it was two men in a sushi restaurant, and one accidentally put the baby on the conveyor belt because that totally happens. Yeah, and it got banned quite rightly. So I don't know many men that are that dumb that they put their baby on a conveyor belt. And that does not help men. It doesn't help women. You know, it was a bit like, don't tell the wife. Which made it 10 times worse, because then you're like, well, the image is the woman's at home going, how dare you, and nagging. So their job is to help police that conversation, and so that to me is really important as well, is that we challenge and we ask ourselves some good questions. So I'm going to leave you with some of the questions I'm going to ask. I'm conscious I don't want to run too far into time. What do women really want to ask from brands? So do we feature in your touch points? And is our complexity represented? So today I've talked about quite a binary view of women, right? So I haven't crossed into transgender, and there's lots of great examples of where that's done. So what do we mean by women? What I also haven't talked about is intersectionality, because we're not just women. Some of us are mums, some of us have different coloured skin, some of us have different backgrounds, different experiences. So you have to think about that as well. So, you know, women are complex, right? You have to represent that. Do you look at us through a skewed lens, and does your brand build our self-esteem? So what can we do explore the brand narrative. You know, what's the story behind the brand? Is it historical, and is that story still relevant and culturally relevant today? If not, then create opportunities to open it up and modify the conversation. This one's always really interesting to me. Challenge your brand to consider who it excludes. To come back to that targeting idea, we're always really focused on, who are we targeting? Who are we talking to with this ad? Flip that question just slightly and go, does this ad exclude somebody? And if it does, am I comfortable with that? And if it does, and I'm not comfortable with that, then we have to do something about it. And this is on the same sort of point. Evaluate your brand comms. You know, do they alienate people? Understand the language that women and men use today, and use it. And then assess your touch points, your experiences in store, online, on the phone. Are they accessible? And really, do they invite people into your brand? I'm going to leave you with one last ad, which I really like as well, which kind of flips the conversation. And again, kind of comes from a point of view of different cultures that have different journeys or in different places along the way.
होमवर्क हो गया? ये देखो। फिर दाग लगा दिया। पापा ये लेके आपके घर जाने की जगह। Hello, yeah, I'm just going to send you the email in 5 minutes. Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'm working on the present.
मेरी छोटी सी गुड़िया कितनी बड़ी हो गई? घर खेलती थी, अब घर संभालती है, ऑफिस संभालती है. I am so proud and I am so sorry. सॉरी कि ये सब तुम्हें अकेले करना पड़ता है. सॉरी कि जब तुम घर खेलती थी तो मैंने तुम्हें रोका नहीं. ये नहीं कहा कि ये सिर्फ तुम्हारा काम नहीं है, तुम्हारे हस्बैंड का भी है. पर कहता भी कैसे है.
और मेरी ग्रीन शर्ट धो देना.
मैंने भी तो कभी तुम्हारी मम्मी की हेल्प नहीं की, और तुमने जो देखा वही सीखा. तुम्हारे हस्बैंड ने भी बचपन में यही देखा होगा. घर खेलते वक्त वो टीवी देखने की या न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ने की एक्टिंग करता होगा, और तुम जैसी कोई छोटी सी लड़की चाय बनाने की एक्टिंग करती होगी. उसके डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, तुम्हारे डैड की तरफ से सॉरी, और हर उस डैड की तरफ से सॉरी जिसने कई सालों से एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया. पर अभी भी देर नहीं हुई. इस सॉरी के साथ मैं अपनी तरफ से एक छोटी सी कोशिश करूंगा कि घर के काम में मम्मी की हेल्प करूं. किचन का किंग ना बन पाऊं तो कम से कम लॉन्ड्री में तो हाथ बटाऊं. इतने साल एक गलत एग्जाम्पल सेट किया है, अब कुछ सही कर जाऊं. तुम्हारा पापा.
So I'm not suggesting everybody goes out and makes some of the amazing examples I've been trying to do, because they are quite extreme and they're calling it out, and we don't need to keep doing that every single time. But what we have to do is kind of work our way around this framework and go, am I taking steps on this journey, and am I adding to the conversation? So it is over to you to have a think about each of these steps within your organisation, where you are, where you would focus. And we have lots of questions that the guys can share that sort of stimulate you thinking how well you might do some of this, that we can share with you afterwards. But I will leave you here, and I'm going to pass over back to Karen.